So 2000 series planners, we've got two software options essentially from the factory. There's the Pro 700 software essentially, or case software, and then there's ISOBUS software. So ISOBUS software is going to run on a UT page on any monitor currently, as long as it's paired with a 2020 for section control. So on a case monitor, it's approved to run it with just the case monitor. If you wanted to run it on somebody else's monitor, anything else, they've had problems with other people's monitors and section control given fits, so they recommend a 2020 with it if you're not using a case monitor to run it. So in this case, we're running it on the 1200, so we're fine. This is going to be kind of our home page here. So as we can see, we're on run 7, which is our ISOBUS page or our universal terminal page. We can move that around if we need to, as far as whether it's on 7, 6, 5, 4, whatever page we want it on, but it comes preset to our 7. So from right here, we can see on the right hand side we've got other run screens as well for the planner. So we've got our normal Pro 1200 run screens, our 1 through 7, and then we've also got 1 through 6 just planner run screens. So those cannot be edited. The only thing that changes these is the planner configuration. So if it thinks the planner has ground contact, you're getting that ground contact bar there. You cannot move it, that's just where it's going to be on this page. We can add it to other run screens if we wanted to watch it on the 1200, let's say do a half guidance page and then a half singulation or something like that. But as far as on the ISOBUS page, it's always going to be there. So there's not a drag it and move it and put it in a different order. The ISOBUS page is what it is because it has to look the same on all monitors. So we've still got a lot of the same features as what we had on our 700 versions with the planner system start, where it's going to activate all the systems. Our frame operations are still going to be operated exactly the same. So right now the frame's set to off. If he clicks on it, just like on a 700, it's going to give us the options for, are we planting, unfolding, what are we doing? Exactly the same setup. As he clicks something, it's going to say, okay, do this, and then you hit next, do this, next, just like we were running on a different monitor.
Something I want to point out on, it doesn't do it on this planner, but on a front full planner, there's a feature in this tab, I believe it's called storage.
Row lift, I think is probably what you're going for.
What that'll allow you to do, two things actually. Sometimes the planners will sit over the winter and they'll shrink down a little bit one side or the other, and it bothers you and you want to pick it back up before you take off. You can go in there and if you press that storage tab, you have to hold it. It'll highlight it. You have to hold it. If you don't hold it, it won't work. And you use your number 1 remote, you can raise and lower that center frame without having to go through the unfolding process. The other thing that's pretty handy about that, at least for me anyway, on a 24-row front full planner, when it's clear up in the transport position, that first step hits me about right here, and I can't get my legs up that high anymore. So you can get in the tractor and you can let that rear frame down and your 3-point hitch down at the same time, and actually let that planner clear back to the ground where your units touch, and you can get up on there without having to unfold. It doesn't show on this because it's a pivot planner, but I just wanted to mention that because it's something that's
Yeah, I'll also mention, I started into it a little bit, but the row lift through here as well. So on front folds like 16s and 24s, especially the 24s, front 2 or 3 row units are pretty low. If you're going through some ditches, they might drag. There is a row lift option here as well that'll use the Delta Force cylinders to actually lift the row units on the wings to get more ground clearance. So it's an option. It's just an additional wiring harness that basically enables the wings to lift with the downforce cylinder. Sorry, that's what I thought you were going for when you... Yep. Yeah, that is a kit we can get through CNH that just plugs into the downforce block and uses those row unit cylinders to lift the row units so you don't scrape. So again, 1 through 6 on here. We went ahead and did it earlier, but if you're running a planner through the universal terminal on the 1200, definitely add that UT window on the left-hand side. So one of the biggest things we'll do here is go down to your downforce and your singulation, bar graphs, Kelly, on the planner. I think it's under 3, right? There you go. So this one right here is going to be our ground contact and our population. So these are two that we're probably going to keep an eye on most of the time. If we wanted to change population to like a singulation or something like that, we just hit that little circle icon over here, and it's going to toggle through over here. It's going to toggle through all of those different options. Hit that for us, Kelly. Oh, he's doing the downforce one, but yeah, so as he hits those icons, it's going to toggle through the different graphs that it's going to show us. We can set the set points as well, and when we want alerted and things like that. However, these are two things that we're going to want to watch most of the time. So we'd leave that up on our universal terminal, and then we'd go back to our map to run our guidance, and we could glance down here at the lower left and still see what our row units are doing as far as if we're keeping ground contact or if we're having an issue with a row. So kind of handy. There's also a kit you can get to put a second 1200 display in the cab if you wanted to go that route as well. So you could run planner systems on one and the tractor controls on the other. Downforce control, very similar to what we had before, where you're going to have light, heavy, standard, and then the custom where you can enter your control. So right here he's got his pound set point, and that's set up as well. But so the run screens on run 7 are fixed. That does not mean that's the only place we can find that information. If we wanted to go back, so like let's go to run 2, Kelly. And go ahead and get into the editor. So hold on him. He's going to hit OK. Go ahead and delete out the remote part on the right. And then those two things, the engine hours and average working speed. And we could set up some planner stuff under implement and boom. So right in here we could turn on whatever features we needed to check on our planner. It adds most of these features to the run screen. You can make changes through the display window as well that will transfer over to the UT page. So now if he clicks his X, it's going to pull up that downforce chart like we had on the other sheet. And again, he's got the little circle, so as he taps it, it'll cycle through different applications as well. So my recommendation would be to set these run screens up based on what you want to adjust. So I'd probably have one for downforce. I could maybe put my bulk fill there if I wanted. Have one for my air system, whether I've got cleaning, closing, the compressor, my tank pressure, stuff like that. Run that on these pages as well, so you're not going back to run 7 and then trying to find it in the run screens there. You can keep all that information prevalent on those pages as well. So we've got our planner hooked up. We're getting ready to go to the field. We can tell by looking at that arrow in the upper left that we probably haven't done our frame calibration. So we need to go in and go through the wizard just like we did on the 700. So we're going to go to those 3 little boxes as our menu. And in here, we're going to have more options as well. So through here, we can see the very top option there would be our planner setup, and then our work condition, and then our calibrations. Same if he goes to the stethoscope, that's going to get him more in-depth information as far as, there's a couple other sub-menus here, but there'll be our meter cal, our steering system or pneumatic system, our downforce test. Through here we can do a lot of our health checks like we can on a 2020 if guys are used to running those. want to go through anything else on the first tab there, Kelly?
Probably the load cell.
Okay.
Just basically, the load cells on your planter, it's not bad to check them every day, but it's pretty simple to zero them out every day. Once in a while you have an issue where one will light up or have some bad readings, so by deleting or by resetting those every day, just takes a minute. You know they're all zero. Obviously, the planter's got to be in the air to do that. And somebody that's new to the Delta Force, if you have it, it's kind of unique the way they do it. Let's say row number 2, Delta Force sensor fails. That's what actually reads the down pressure. If it fails, they've got it set up where you can cancel number 2 out, and it will take readings off of row 1 and 3 until you get time to fix that. So the beauty of that is you can keep running. Changing the load cells is a little bit of a job, I guess. I've never done it, but there's a certain way you have to do it. But just food for thought. But zeroing out those load cells, I think, is a pretty good idea. Give it a couple days at least, or at least go in there and check them so that they all look right.
On some of the older planters with load cells, like the 1200 series, we saw a lot more problems with the load cells going out, whereas the new design on the 2000 series, it's not as common of a problem.
I have actually seen the load cell go bad and raise the row unit clear out of the ground, so some weird things can happen, but you can cancel that load cell out, and then it will read off the 2 rows next to it, and it'll probably be just as good as having it working.
Another thing on this page that we need to go over is if we go to our, essentially on this page, we've got the tractor above the planter on the left-hand side. So we're into some planter options here. So let's go ahead and click on the tractor ECU, and then on the TECU. And then right here is going to be what we're going to use for our ground-based speed, whether we're using radar or GPS. And that's actually what the tractor's feeding the planter through the ISOBUS page. So just so you're aware where you would change that. If you are kind of new to the Delta Force system, it's very sensitive to air. If it does get air inside the system, there's a purge test we can do where it will, we'll have to unpin all the rows, and then it extends and retracts all the cylinders to try to get any air out of the system. But the Delta Force system itself is very sensitive to air in the system. So we've connected to the planter, we're making sure we're seeing everything. We went through our run screens, kind of got them set up the way we want. I think there's a book he was handing out there that does show what a lot of the UDWs will look like when you add them, the user-defined windows, to your run screens. So you can kind of get familiar with what you're wanting and how it's going to look. But once we've got all that done, we've done our frame calibration, so we know the arrow in the upper left is moving the way we need it to, as far as when the planter's in the air versus when it's in a planning state. We need to make sure we go through and set up our product and assign it. So one thing we would do is we would go into our implement. So let's go to menu, and then under implement, on our application control, we should see our controller. There we go. So it's seeing the seed boom as an active controller. The next thing that we need to do now then, since we're sure we've got that, essentially that application control node, or it's seeing the planter's application system, we're going to go to our operations tab at the upper right. And over here we're going to scroll down until we see the implement. And underneath the implement we should have our controller assignment. So it's going to show us our rows, and then down underneath of that is our product. So the implement's not going to, or the tractor's not going to let the implement apply until you've told it what product it's going to put out. So you do have to put something in here. It could just be as simple as corn, beans, whatever you wanted to do. But have to put in some basics as far as what app rates and min max we're gonna need. One thing that does get some of the guys is that's K seeds instead of 1,000 seeds. So he put in 32,000 there, or whatever it'd be. 32,000, 1,000.
And it will plant it.
It'll try. That should be all he really has to do then there is put add once he's selected that information. And there we go. Just calling them crop titles. So go ahead and scroll up a little bit, Kelly. Underneath your grower farm field, there's probably a crop set. And there we go. So now that we've assigned that to that drive, it says that this planter with this implement controller is going to be planting corn at these rates. Now when we go through and add our product control to our run screens, it's going to populate all that based on this product that he just created. This would be the same if you're doing like anhydrous or granular or anything like that. You're going to have to do the same product setup as we're doing right now. So now that we've got a product assigned, we've got a down arrow. Once we go into our UT page and make sure we've got a rate and we're getting speed, that should be all the criteria met to apply. And our roading switch does have to be off as well. So in this instance, we're getting a down arrow in the upper left. We've got our product set, everything's met except we're in road mode. If he were going to apply, he'd get an error that he's not in a valid state or something along those lines. There you go.
We can also set up products. We'll show another way to do that.
Yeah, you want to go through like work condition or go to the product library and create them there. We can.
Get all there, right?
Yeah, my recommendation would be to do that, but probably the easiest place to do it is to enter it all on AFS Connect and then just send it to the machine, because you could manually type it there. But if we did want to go into our data section in our product library, we could manually add products there as well. And then they'd be on that list that we could just select. So menu, data, and then our product library. So he's only got one product. He could go in and add more here. If we did have like a liquid product on here as well, we would just go in and there'd be, rather than seed boom, just to the right of it, there'd be our liquid boom, and we would do the same thing with a product setup there.
If you're running the 2020, will you shut the seed boom off?
I think you still have to tell it that it's putting on a product, but you're not going to set your rate or anything through here. It's going to take most of that information off of your ISOBUS screen to begin with when you tell it that the 2020 is installed. So I think you still have to assign it a product, but you're not going to make any population changes or anything like that through there. It's all going to be on your 2020. Also, when you put a USB stick in, it's going to recognize that there's a USB stick in, and when you shut the display off or remove the USB stick, it's going to save that like documents folder that I talked about earlier to it. it up and search through the manual that way. This one not being set up, it's probably going to throw some fault codes as he goes through and moves things around. Just because the calibration hasn't been done. But all these steps should look very familiar with the Pro 700s. Kind of getting pretty grainy again, Kelly. So anything with the box and the kind of the blue bezel around it with the word or something in the middle of it can be tapped on and changed. So like backstage bulk fill where they say off, he could tap and turn those on individually. And then set points through another. Yeah, it's probably going to have to be in a valid state. So right here it says it's off on the left where it's got the rate. If he taps that to on, it will kick it on. Auto headland, same thing right there. Set his RPMs. I like that it puts that bump up amount right at the bottom of it, so you can just adjust right there if you wanted to go up by 50 or 100 or. But again, most of this information can be put on a normal run screen as well, to which you could name. So you could click on, let's say I wanted cleaning/closing on one screen with my compressor and pressure. I could put all that on one of my normal user-defined windows, so I don't have to go back here. Marker control is the same way. That one definitely needs moved, so you're not trying to flick around on the screen all the time just to get back to it. Clutch control.
I've had explain to him about if you want to plant with one row clutch on one row.
Oh, so you mean just pick them all in the manual and leave the one on auto?
Well, at least one
Or
on.
on them all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so through here, we can go in and select each individual row. So there's options at the top for sections, if I wanted to do 1 through 4 sections, or I can select manually whether I want a row manually on or manually off, and then automatic on. So as he taps those rows, go ahead and tap them one more time. That's going to be manual off, manual on. Let's say I'm too close to a section or I had a row that plugged and was not planning, I could go in here and manually it on. Once I get through that section, kick it back to auto. Or I can just hit all on manual, all off manual, all on auto, and then just select what I want specifically to be on versus off. Most of you guys ran the 2000 series before on a different monitor or on this monitor or just new to the planner in general or a little bit of everything, new to the 1200. It's not a whole lot different. The biggest thing to remember is to go ahead and set up your run screens way in advance before you get started on the first field and then realize on the first field what you want to change. Because everybody goes, well, I'll start planning on the ISOBUS page and then I'll just add stuff on the other pages I need it. Well, then you're going and you're like, well, I need it now. and then you gotta go find it on the ISOBUS page, and then by the time that gets done, something else comes up, and you never get around to putting it in the spot it needs to be. It's just more of a pain. So go through, in the book that he gave you there, there's some information on kind of what all the UDWs look like, what they mean. Go through and set it up the way you think. Just remember to try to group stuff and put anything you need to select over on the right hand side so you can hit it pretty easy and hold the edge of the display. Set those run screens up and then just make minor adjustments as you need. But definitely you'll want that UT shortcut on the left hand side. And again, all these are kind of preset based on what options the planner has when you go through the configurator on it. So the planner setup, when it says you have a 2020, you tell it yes, it's going to get rid of a lot of that information that's now going to be found on your 2020. .20s on these are super simple to put on and hook to the planner. Should get you some more advanced information. What else we need, Kelly?
I think that pretty well covers it, unless you got some questions.
Anybody have anything that they, burning questions?
One thing I will point out, you may already know this, but if it's the first time you've had one of these planners, I learned this the hard way. You gotta have everything running in order for the planner to operate. So like if you're in a barn lot and you wanna raise your residue managers up with the air, and well, the air compressor's got plenty of air in it, so let's just raise them up. Well, I was messing with one 2 or 3 years ago, and I wanted to do just that, raise them up. And I worked, we couldn't get it to do it. We started tracing lines and checking valves and this and that. Well, the alternator needs to be running, the bulk fill needs to be on, the vacuums all need to be running. So you want to start the whole planner to do just about anything. It threw me for a loop, it took me a day to figure it out, but it's about as well as the way to start it. And then there's always, obviously, a start systems button in here that you can press and hold, and it will start all those for you, so you don't have to individually go turn on the compressor, turn on the alternator, turn on the bulk fill, and individually you can do it all with one button. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind.